Okay, here we want to talk about quadratic equations, but more specifically, we want to look at how to solve a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. Now, with the previous quadratic equations that we solved, we could easily factor them. Okay, you remember we looked at the last terms and the middle terms. But now we want to see what happens when we have an equation that cannot be factored. For example, we have x squared minus 3x minus 5. There are no numbers that can multiply to give you a negative 5 and can be added to give us negative 3. So in this case, we must use the quadratic equation. So I listed the quadratic equation above. It's x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This can be used with any quadratic equations, but it's particularly useful when you can't factor or you're having a lot of trouble with the factor. So now let's take a look. X squared minus 3x minus 5. So we know this cannot be factored. So what do? We want to know that a is equal to 1, which is the coefficient of x squared. B is equal to negative 3, which is the coefficient of negative 3x. And C is our constant, which is negative 5. So now we're going to go directly to the formula. So we have x is equal to negative b, which is the opposite of negative 3, plus or minus negative 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 5. And all of this is over 2a in this case, which is 2 times 1. We come down to the next row. The opposite of negative 3 is 3, plus or minus. That is going to give us 9. Negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 5 is a positive 20. All of that is over 2. And in the end, our final answer, we have 3 plus or minus the square root of 29 over 2. That's our answer. Now, if we remember, earlier we had a problem, and it was let's say x squared minus 3x minus 40. If you look at the previous example, we solved this one. Now, if by the previous example, I think this was 8 minus 5 times x plus 5, and our final answer was x is equal to 8 and negative 5. But we could also use this using the quadratic equation. So once again, in this case, a is equal to 1, which is the coefficient of x. B is equal to negative 3, which is the coefficient of negative 3x. And C is equal to negative 40. So we go directly to our equation. X is equal to the opposite of negative 3 plus or minus b squared minus 4ac, 4 times 1 times negative 40. All of this is over 2 times 1. So when we go, we simplify. The opposite of negative 3 is 3. Plus or minus, that's going to be 9 plus 160. all over 2. 9 plus 160 is going to give us 169 over 2. And if we remember, the square root of 169 is 13. So now we come down in closing. 3 plus 13 is 16 divided by 2. 3 minus 13 is negative 10 divided by 2. So in the end, our answer is x is equal to 8 and negative 5. And if we remember from the previous example, this is the exact same way that the exact same answer that we've got when we solve this with traditional and basic factor.